Welcome to my channel. I decided to try a new brand of watercolor paints, and here I have Japanese watercolor paints made by Kuretake. I have heard very different opinions about these paints. Some artists love them, especially because of the unique colors, and some artists totally hate them. They say that for those who are familiar with our traditional watercolor paints, those are much similar to gouache. Opacity is similar to gouache paints, and consistency is similar to watercolor, so they are not as creamy as gouache. Many people mentioned that sometimes they look muddy, they look muted, but I decided that actually I love to use pastel and muted colors, especially for the background. My watercolor palette, it already consists of many very bright, very vibrant, rich colors, but sometimes I really like something pastel, something more calm. I know that I can mix such colors myself, but I am lazy, and I decided that if I can try something which already exists, I can try it. When I looked at the color palette of the available paints in our local offline shop, I decided that I don't want to test blue colors or green colors. I think that blue and green I prefer when they are vibrant and transparent. So I mostly selected these interesting pastel shades of pale pink, potter pink, maroon, imperial violet, pale aqua, old mauve and grayish blue. They have quite interesting palette of dark colors similar to this. So if I love them, maybe I will try more colors. So you can see that I prepared test paper for more area where I can add more paints. First of all, I was impressed by the size of the pen. That's Kuretake, and you can compare it with full size pen and half size. Yeah, this one is considerably bigger. They are currently packed with this protective. On the back we have only the number, right? Oh no, here if we look at the back of the pen, we actually have the name and number. Very convenient. Okay, so now I will do a quick swatch of them, and then I will check my coloring books, and with such limited color palette I have to think which picture I can color, or at least to do the background using them. I'm really very curious about their vibrancy, about their opacity, and about their blending. here is my finished picture. It's from set of postcards by K.Kubikowska, and I called it Last Autumn Berries. Here we have this slightly creepy fox trying to eat last berries, and it's already snowing. That was my idea of the page, and I managed to use 3 of Kuretake watercolor paints here. Yes, paints which I purchased, they are not very matching, so it was difficult to invent which colors I can mix, which colors I can use together. In the end, I decided to use this right side, and I decided to test them on this postcards because they are printed on awesome paper. So when you test paints here, you will be sure that all the good things, all the bad things from the paints, it's not because of paper, it's only features of paints, because paper is totally awesome. Well, what can I say? I do love colors. I really needed those slightly muted pastel colors. For many of my pictures, I am sure that colors like powder pink for brick walls, all those colors, I will use them. Yes, I noticed that indeed they are muddy, and majority of my paints, they have this whitish pigment inside of them. Maybe only maroon and imperial violet, they look slightly more clear. So I can understand why people call them slightly muddy and more similar to gouache paints. They actually similar to some of my paints which also have white pigment in them. So I was familiar with such behavior. I do love that when you use them on paper with small amount of water, you can even cover some of the lines. It could be extremely helpful if you do first layer with such paints. You won't need to mask black lines. On top of these paints, you can easily work with all pencils. You can saw that I used several brands on branches, on leaves, so it's totally possible to work on top with them, and I do love how pencils behave on them. Mostly they created a very nice matte finish, but when I put on my swatch too much paint with small amount of water, there are a couple of areas, those where I started to apply pigment, and actually this area is shiny, so you can get a matte cover from the same paint, and if you keep pigment with small amount of water, there will be slightly strange shiny areas. So you need to control how your pigment is behaving on paper. And another thing is that when you try to add more water to the paint already on paper, or when you try to blend them directly on paper, things which I usually do normally with my regular watercolor paints, you can get quite sharp borders between area where you added water. You can see it very nicely here. I dropped water, and yeah, if you abandon this area and don't control such pool of water, don't push it constantly, if you just let it dry, there will be quite harsh and strong borders. Yes, it's interesting effect, but sometimes it's not very helpful if you just want to do smooth gradient on the background. When I did my background, I used quite 2 at least close colors, and even when I tried to blend them here, there was a border between colors. So blending and mixing, probably it's the thing which is not very easy for those paints. What can I say? I'm glad that I purchased them because I simply needed such colors. I was too lazy to try and to mix them myself from the paints which I own. But if you think about your one and only first set of watercolor paints and sets of Kuretake watercolors, they look extremely attractive, shiny and beautiful like sweets, like candies. But I wouldn't recommend them as your main set of watercolors. They are indeed slightly different in behavior, and they, at least what I can say, they could be used as a first layer, but not for some original watercolor effects. So maybe I need to explore them more, but my first opinion, nice as additional paints for special effects, but not great as your one and only main set of watercolor paints. But I'm very happy that thanks to this paints, I managed to do another postcard in K.Kubikowska, and I really love my result, despite the slightly creepy picture which initially I didn't like, because, well, I prefer normal animals. But then I started to think about this idea about where the fox is looking at. I decided to add those berries, and now I really love this small story which you have behind it, and I think that colors are quite complementary. Those muted colors of the background look quite well with the vibrant colors of the fur. Well, thanks for watching, and of course, I hope that in my next colorings I will try to use also this water pink, this maroon, because maroon, it's quite lovely, but when I started to apply it, it was considerably darker. After drying all those paints, they maybe like 2 or 3 shades lighter. Yes, that's normal for watercolor paints, but maybe not as much as those. They really started to look much lighter. Well, anyway, it was interesting. I'm not sure that I want to expand the line of those paints. I think that I keep in mind only a couple of colors. They unfortunately wasn't available. If I will see them later in our shop, maybe I will purchase them. Again, either very dark or those pastel muted colors to expand my palette. But I don't expect that I totally will move from my regular Rosa Gallery or Royal Talents paints to the Kuretake Zig. For me, they are a little bit inconvenient. Well, I still hope that you enjoyed this speed coloring, and thanks for watching. If you have your own opinion about these Kuretake watercolors, I will be extremely happy to hear. Maybe I missed something, maybe there are other very nice and unique colors, so I will be happy to hear your opinion. Thanks for watching, and until the next videos.